By the way, I am recording this class, so in case someone comes late, or in case you want to review the class later on, so you may refer to the recording of this class, which I will be uploading, and Motley admin will just send it to you via email. Okay? So let's start with logical thinking. This is problem number 1. So if you have any questions, please just say your concerns in chat. Okay, so let's start. This is problem number 1. Given A and B are two non-zero digits, and the two-digit numbers formed by these two digits have the following properties. AB is divisible by 8, BA is a prime number and is less than 50. Okay, so you are using two non-zero digits. So be careful with this. So you can only use the digits 1 up to 9. And it's not said that A and B cannot be the same, no? So both of them can either be the number 1 up to 9. So AB is divisible by 8. What was that tell us? If AB is divisible by 8. That means that the units digit is even, right? Units digit is even. Since all of the multiples of 8 have an even units digit. Okay? So in other words, in this, the way you form the number A and B, your units digit is B. So the possible values for B are 2, 4, 6, and 8. Notice I didn't include 0 because, as we've said before, non-zero digits. Okay? What else? What's the next condition? BA is a prime number. So if you flip the two digits to form a different number, BA, it should be a prime number that is less than 50. So if it's less than 50, that means the tens digit is less than 5, right? Meaning, what's our tens digit here? It's on again B. No? It's B this time. So the possible values for B are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now, we have here possible values for B, other possible values for B. You have to meet both conditions. So you have to find which digits are common in both sets, right? So the only digits that are common across the two sets are 2 and 4. So these are the only possible values for B, right? So we have two cases to analyze. Let's start with the first case wherein B is equal to 4. Excuse me. So if your B is equal to 4, what are the primes that you can make such that it is BA? What are the possible prime numbers that you can make with tens digit 4? There are, we have 41, 43, and 47. I think those are it. Those are the only prime numbers, right, in the 40s. Nothing else. And then, if you make an AB, so you just flip the two digits, you would make 14, 34, and 74. Which one of this meets our condition that's divisible by 8? None, right? There's none. So none divisible by 8. That means we have no answer from this case, no? We can't get a solution from this case 1. So let's examine case 2, wherein B is equal to 2. So what are the prime numbers that we can make? Excuse me. The prime numbers that we can make of the form BA are, so dapat tens digit is 2. So we have, I think, 23 and 29 only. Is that right? Nothing else? 21 is not a prime, 25 not a prime, 27 not a prime. Okay, so those are the only two primes that you can make. So if you flip the digits to make AB, what are the numbers? We have 32 and 92. No, we just flip the digits. So which one of these two is divisible by 8? Only this one, right? This is divisible by 8, meaning This is the only number that fits both conditions. So this is our answer, 32. Okay, so the question was find the two-digit number AB. So AB should be 32. Understood? Okay, so if you have any questions, just message in chat. No, we have a chat box here, so you can, if you have any concerns. So number 2, Andy goes east for 12 kilometers and then goes south for 5 kilometers. Let's draw. This is the starting point. Andy goes like this for 12 kilometers and then south for 5 kilometers. So this is the end point. How far is it now from the original position? So we have when we have problems like this, it's just the straight line distance, right? From the start to the end point. Now this is what? East and then south. It forms a right angle. This is 90 degrees, right? So this is a right triangle. So we can use Pythagorean theorem. Okay. So what's Pythagorean theorem? C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared, where C is your hypotenuse, right? This is your hypotenuse. A and B are the legs. So 12 and 5. So C squared is equal to 12 squared plus 5 squared. So you take the square root of both sides of the equation. So we have square root of C squared is equal to 144 plus 25. This is C. This is equal to, sorry, I didn't take the square root here. So this should be square root of 169, which is 13. That's our answer. By the way, this is a very common Pythagorean triple, 5, 12, 13. So Pythagorean triples are just a trio of three integers that form the basis of the Pythagorean theorem. So this is a very common Pythagorean triple, in case you don't know. Another one would be 3, 4, 5, right? 3, 4, 5. So that's another pretty common because 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. Okay, next problem. The cost of a teddy bear is $300. If the market price is $390, what is the profit margin in percentage? So when we're saying profit, it's the difference between how much you sell it for. So that's the price, the market price. So let's write how much you sell it for. Minus how much you bought it for, right? So that's the cost. How much you bought it for. Okay. So take note, we have the cost here, which is 300 degrees. The selling price, the market price is 390 degrees. Sorry, not degrees, dollars. So that means our profit is just 390 minus 300. So that's equal to $90. But the question here is not the value in dollars. It's the profit margin in percentage. So when we're saying in percentage, we have to divide the profit by the original value, which is the cost. No, this is the original value of the item. So the cost, and then you multiply by 100%. So that's equal to 90 over 300 times 100%. So this is when you simplify, this is 3 over 10, right? When you divide by 30, both numerator and denominator. So this is equal to 30%. Okay? So by the way, you can just take a screenshot. No? Whenever we finish solving a problem, you can just take a screenshot so that you can review later on. Number 4, Amy's walking speed is 4 meters per second. She walks home to the shopping mall and from the shopping mall back and forth 5 times in 15 minutes. What is the distance between Amy's home and the shopping mall in meters? Okay. So let's get the time first. The time is 15 minutes. So take note, the speed is in meters per second. So let's convert our time in minutes into seconds, okay? So that we have consistent units. So we have, what's the conversion? There's 60 seconds for every 1 minute. So that's the equivalent, right? 60 seconds per 1 minute. So we have 900 seconds. So that's the time in seconds. Okay. And then, what's the formula for the speed? So this is a very commonly used formula in your science later on in your physics class. Distance over time. For example, the units of the SI unit of distance is meters. For the time, it's seconds. So as you can see, speed is in meters per second, right? So that makes sense. So if you want to get the distance, so you just rearrange the formula. Distance is equal to speed times time, right? If you multiply time both sides of the equation, then you make this form. Okay. So let's calculate the total distance of going back and forth 5 times. Excuse me. So total distance excuse me. So we have total distance. What's the speed? 4 meters per second. What's the total time? So this is for going back and forth 5 times, right? So take note of that. The time was, we already calculated in terms of seconds. That's 900 seconds. So our distance should be in meters because we can just cancel the seconds. No? 4 times 900 is equal to 3,600 meters. So this is the total distance that Amy walked. But take note, the question is the distance between Amy's home and the shopping mall. It's just the one distance, the one-way distance. So when we're saying back and forth, that means a round trip, no? So you go from your home to the shopping mall, and then from the shopping mall back to your home. So that's equivalent to 2 one-way trips, right? So that means if she goes 5 times back and forth, that's equal to 10 one-way trips, right? So that means our total distance is equal to 10 times the one-way distance. No? So this is the one-way distance between the home and the mall. So we calculated this as 3,600. So we just divide by 10, right? So the one-way distance is just 360 meters. So that's our answer. Okay? Any questions, clarifications? Okay, let's continue. Number 5. Wait, let me charge my device. Okay, number 5. The 12th of May, 2018 is a Saturday. Which year will 12th of May be Friday for the quickest or the earliest case? Okay, when we're going from one year to another, same day of the month. So May 12, what happens? The calendar will shift one day, right? If it's a normal year. Why is that? Because for a normal year, excuse me, normal year, we have 365 days. So if you divide this by 7, which is the number of days in a week, no? There's 7 days in a week, Sunday to Saturday. This is equal to 52 weeks, remainder of 1 day. So that 1 day just means that you shift from, let's say, from a Saturday, it becomes a Sunday the next year, right? So let me write that. It shifts the calendar forward by 1 day. How about if we have a leap year? Are we all familiar what a leap year is? It's when you have an extra day. No, you have a February 29. So we have 366 days in a leap year. So if you divide by the number of days in a week, you have same number of weeks, 52, remainder 2 days. So in this case, you shift the calendar forward by 2 days. Okay? So what's the closest leap year that we can think of? I think it's 2020, right? Because it's divisible by 4. So if 2018, the 12th of May is a Saturday, then by 2019, it will shift the calendar forward by 1 day. So the May 12 becomes a Sunday. But it's when it's 2020, this is a leap year since it's divisible by 4, right? And by the way, if you're not familiar, a leap year happens every 4 years, right? So if it shifts forward 2 days, you have 2 plus 2. So that would be a Tuesday instead of a Monday, right? How about 2021? It shifts forward only 1 day, so that's a Wednesday. 2022, that's a Thursday. 2023, that's a Friday. The question was, which year will be it? Will May 12 be Friday for the quickest, earliest case? So the answer is 2023. Okay? Do we have any questions? None? Okay, next problem. There are 30 problems in mathematics, in a mathematics competition. The scores of each problem are allocated in the following ways. 5 marks will be given for a correct answer. 0 marks will be given for a blank or a wrong answer. Find the minimum number of candidates to ensure that 3 candidates will have the same scores in the competition. So when we're saying we have to find the minimum number, or another way of putting it in our Math Olympiad, sometimes they say at least how many, no? At least how many to ensure. That's when you think that this is a pigeonhole principle problem. Are you all familiar with this? Pigeonhole principle. In a pigeonhole principle problem, we analyze the worst case scenario. So we have to meet the condition for a worst case scenario. So let's say for this one, what are the possible scores that we can have? Let's list it here. Possible scores. Only multiples of 5, right? Because 5 marks for a correct answer, 0 for our blank or wrong answer. So if you have all the wrong answers, your score is 0, right? If you have 1 correct, only 1 correct, you have 5. If you have only 2 correct answers, you have 10, and so on. Until, if you have a perfect score, that's 30 times 5, right? 150. That's the maximum score that you can get. Perfect score. This is if you are perfect 0, no? You have no correct answers. So these are the possible scores. So how many unique scores do we have in total? There's 31, right? 31 possible scores. Why is it 31? From 5 to 150, Those are just the 30 multiples of 5, but we have to include C0. So that's an additional unique score. So there's 31 numbers here, 31 possible scores. Okay? Okay, so let's go back to the question. We want to ensure that 3 candidates will have the same score. So that's our goal. Let's write the goal. 3 candidates, same score. So what would be the worst case scenario? How do we delay this happening? The worst case is if each of the possible scores have exactly 2 candidates with that score. No? So let me write that. Exactly 2 candidates has the same same score for the 31 unique scores. Okay? So let's say 2 people got 0, 2 people got 5, 2 people got 10, and so on. 2 people got perfect score. So that's the worst case scenario, because at that point, you have exhausted all of the possible scores without getting 3 people with the same score, right? So this is 31 times 2. So that's 62 candidates. Excuse me. So that means if we want to ensure that there's 3 with the same score, we just have to add 1. Okay? 63. Because at that point, the 63rd candidate is guaranteed to have a same score with the other 2 people. No? So there's 3 people of the same score. Guaranteed to be the third person. The third person with same score. So it could be any of the possible scores, right? We have already exhausted 0, 5 up to 150. Okay, understood? Or do we need clarifications or any concerns, questions? So that's the last problem, by the way, for logical thinking. As I said in the introduction, there's 6 problems. No? 6 problems each category for our final round. So let's continue. We have arithmetic. This should be algebra, sorry. I didn't change the category. This should be algebra, right? Find the value of y if we have this equation. So by now, you should already be masters of solving simple equations, no? You're already in secondary 1. This is already in your curriculum. So let's simplify the equation. We have to take them out of their parentheses. So this portion, this first group, you can just take take this out directly, right? Meanwhile, for the second group, you have to distribute the negative sign, right? So the 3y becomes a negative 3y. The negative 23 multiplied by a negative, that's positive 23, is equal to 5. We combine like terms, so we have 4y minus 3y. So we can combine these two. And we have the numerical values, negative 13 and positive 23. So we have, this is just 1y or just y. And this is positive 10, right? Okay, so we can subtract 10 from both sides. Or in other words, you can transpose the positive 10 to the other side, so that becomes a negative 10. So 5 minus 10 is just negative 5. So that's just our answer. All right, is that clear? It's very straightforward, right? Next problem. If x and y are positive integers, and it follows the equation 3x plus 4y is equal to 33, find the maximum value of x plus y. Okay, take note, positive integers. So your x should be greater than or equal to 1. Your y should be greater than or equal to 1 also. Now, our technique here is how about we isolate one variable from this equation. So let's say we transpose this 3x to the other side. So that becomes 4y is equal to 33 minus 3x. Okay, we follow? The 3x becomes negative when you transpose. And then let's divide both sides by 4. So we have y is equal to 33 minus 3x all over 4. Take note, your y should be an integer. So what should be the case that your y should be an integer? This numerator should be divisible by the denominator, right? For it to become an integer. Numerator should be divisible by denominator, which is 4. So that y is an integer. Okay? So by the way, we can simplify this further, no? I didn't take note. We can take out the 3. We can factor out 3. So that's 11, no? 33 divided by 3. And then the 3x becomes just x. Now, 3 is not divisible by 4. So this 11 minus x must be divisible by 4. No? 11 minus x must be divisible by 4. So what are the possible cases where your 11 minus x is divisible by 4? And x is a positive integer, huh? It shouldn't be a negative integer. So we have, say, for example, 3. No? If x is 3, then your 11 minus x is equal to 11 minus 3, which is 8. So that's divisible by 4, right? So what happens to your y? Your y is equal to 3 over 4 times 11 minus 3, which is 8. We already calculated. Okay? So that's 8 divided by 4 becomes 2. So that's 6. So our xy pair is equal to 3, 6. Okay? X is 3, y is 6. So that's one possible values for x and y. What else? We can have x is equal to 7. Why? Because 11 minus 7 is equal to 4. Right? So this is your 11 minus x. So which is, of course, divisible by 4. So what happens? What's the value for y? We have 3 times 11 minus x, which is 4 in this case, over 4. So that's just equal to 3. So our other solution is xy is equal to 7 and 3. Right? So this is one possible pair, one possible pair. What else? We can still have 11. No? 11 minus 11 is 0, which is divisible by 4. But take note, if we set x is equal to 11, our y becomes 0. No? This will become 11 minus x is 0. So this is 0, which is not possible because our y should be a positive integer. So this is not possible. So these are the only two possible solutions. But going back to the problem, the question was maximum value of y. So for this case, x plus y is 3 plus 6 is 9. For this case, we have x plus y is 7 plus 3, which is 10. Meaning, our maximum x plus y is, which one is bigger? Of course, it's 10. So that's our answer. Okay? Okay, if there are no questions, let's continue. Evaluate this expression. What do we notice from the numerator? This is just sum of the first 10 integers. Right? Take note, we have a formula for the sum of the first n integers. So n is an arbitrary integer. So of the form, let's say 1 plus 2 plus ... plus until n. The formula is n times n plus 1 all over 2. Okay? So just recall this formula for sum of the first n integers. So this is just derived from your arithmetic sum, right? Since this is just an arithmetic sequence with common difference 1. So you can you can, what do you call this? You can derive it from that. Diba? If your sum, arithmetic sum is n over 2, let's use a different color. Sum is n over 2, first term plus last term. So it's still not visible. Let's use white. Let me just write it on the bottom. So arithmetic sum, let's review a bit, is equal to number of terms over 2 times the sum of the first term plus the last term. So this is just this. Because your last term is n, your first term is 1. No? So that becomes this formula for the first n integers. Okay? So that means this one is equal to, our n is 10. So that's 10 times 10 plus 1 all over 2. 10 over 2 is 5. So this is 5 times 11, which is 55. How about our denominator? For our denominator, take note that 0.1, what is this in fraction? This is 1 over 10, right? In fraction. How about 0.2? This is 2 over 10. 0.3 is just 3 over 10 in fraction. And so on. Until your 1 is just 10 over 10. To keep the same denominator, no? Let's make it consistent. So this is just 1 squared over 10 squared, which is 100. 2 squared over 10 squared, which is also 100. And so on. Okay, so notice I didn't evaluate the squares in the numerators. So just the denominators, which is 100. So take note, we can factor out 1 over 100. So we have 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared plus until 10 squared. So what is this sequence? This is the sum of the first 10 perfect squares, right? First 10 perfect squares. But for our n perfect squares, do we know the formula? Do you guys recall this formula for this? So if we have 1 squared plus 2 squared up to some arbitrary number n squared, the formula is just n times n plus 1 times 2n plus 1 all over 6. This is another useful formula that you will use a lot in Math Olympiad. Okay? In this case, we have our n is 10, right? By the way, don't forget the factored out 1 over 100, huh? So we have n is equal to 10. So we have 10 times 10 plus 1 times the value of 2 times 10 plus 1 and then all over 6. Okay, so we just use this formula for n is equal to 10. Let's simplify. This is 10 times 11 times this is 21, right? Now for 6, I will break it down as 2 times 3 so that I can cancel something, no? 10 over 2 is 5. 21 over 3 is 7. So this becomes 1 over 100 times 5 times 11 times 7. We can still simplify, right? Because 100 is divisible by 5. So the denominator will just become 20. So 11 times 7 over 20. Okay, so let's combine the entire expression. So the entire expression is numerator over denominator. What was the value for the numerator again? This one, right? The 55. Okay, so this is 55. And then for our denominator, it's this one. 11 times 7 over 20. So when you're dividing by a fraction, you just do multiplication by its reciprocal. So 20 over 11 times 7 Take note, we can cancel something. 55 over 11 is 5. So we have 5 times 20 over 7, which is 100 over 7. Let me check. Yes, so this is our final answer. Or if you convert this to mixed fraction form, we have 14 and 2 over 7. Okay? So both of these fractions are acceptable answers. Okay, take a screenshot if you need to. And then let's continue. Number 10. Given A and B are positive real numbers and satisfy equations A squared plus B squared is equal to 80 and A plus B is equal to 10, find the value of AB. So we have, if you recall, we have this algebraic identity. If we square a sum of two numbers, A plus B, if we square this binomial, we call this a binomial, right? Because it involves two terms. If you square this, what happens? This is A squared plus 2AB plus B squared. In case you forget this, you can just do your FOIL method, right? A plus B times A plus B. It will just evaluate to this. So how do we make use of this for our problem? Take note, we can rewrite this as we combine the A squared and the B squared, and then keep this out of the group. What happens? We can transpose this to the other side of the equation. So that becomes minus A squared plus B squared. So what will remain here is the 2AB. And that's exactly what we're looking for, the AB, right? So we can just divide both sides by 2. Okay? That means our AB is equal to, take note, we have a value for A plus B, this one. We have a value for A squared plus B squared, which is this one. So we can just substitute the given values. A plus B, quantity squared. So our A plus B is 10. So that's 10 squared. A squared plus B squared from the given is 80. So substitute the value all over 2. So we have 100 minus 80 all over 2, 20 over 2, which is 10. Okay? By the way, you could also start substituting here right away, right? At this point, you can already substitute. This is 10 squared is equal to 80 plus 2AB, right? And then you will still just go through the same steps. 100 minus 80 equals 2AB. 20 is equal to AB. So your AB is 10. Okay? It's just the same. Number 11, solve for this system of equations. What do we do again when we have a system of equations? In this case, we have two equations, two unknowns. No? Two equations, the unknowns are x and y. What we do is either elimination or substitution. Personally, I prefer elimination. No? So one way we can do this is we want to eliminate y, for example. We can multiply the second equation by 2, right? Multiply equation 2 by 2. And then we add the two equations. So let's rewrite the first one. Excuse me. Let's multiply the second one by 2. So we have x plus 2y, copy the first equation. For the second one, we have 6x minus 2y is equal to negative 10. So now we can add the two equations. Now, let's add x plus 6x, that's 7x. 2y plus negative 2y. Of course, that's 0. Cancels out. 3 minus 10, that's negative 7. Divide both sides by 7. So your x is equal to negative 1. Okay? By the way, in this problem, you really have to eliminate y instead of x, right? So that you will just go through it one step in smaller steps because you want to find the value of x, not y. So it's better if you eliminate y directly. Okay? Next problem. Find the value of this expression. What do we notice? This is just sum of squares of consecutive integers, correct? Consecutive integers. As you can see, these are just consecutive integers and then you square them. 13, 14, 15. What was our formula again for this one? Sum of the first n squares. This one. So we can use this. Sum of the first n squares. First n squares. Or in other words, squares of n consecutive integers. Right? That's the same thing. Squares of n consecutive integers. So let's just rewrite the formula. 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared up to some arbitrary number n times n plus 1, 2n plus 1, all over 6. But you might ask, sir, why is it that, how can we use this formula if we're starting from 13? What do we do? What we can do is we can just write this as 1 squared plus 2 squared up to your biggest square, which is 33 squared. And then, what do? We just subtract the 1 squared up to 12 squared, right? So we just subtract 1 squared up to 12 squared. So that your result will be starting from 13 squared. You follow? So that's our technique here, so that we can use this formula. Because this is just applicable when you're starting from 1 squared, 2 squared, and so on. So our technique is to just subtract the unwanted squares. So take note, this is n is equal to 33 for our formula. This is n is equal to 12. So we can do the formula simultaneously. This, our n is 33, so that's 33. 33 plus 1. 2 times 33 plus 1. All over 6 minus 12. 12 plus 1. 2 times 12 plus 1. All over 6. So we have 33 times 34 times, this is 67, right? And then this is, let me write your 6 as 3 times 2. And then here we have 12 times 13. 2 times 12, 24 plus 1, that's 25. So I broke down the 6 as 3 times 2 so that I can cancel. No? 33 over 3 is 11. 34 over 2 is 17. So we have 11 times 17 times 6, 7. Minus 12 over 6, we can cancel, right? This is just 2. So we have 2 times 13 times 25. The value of this, you can just calculate on your own. 12,529. Minus, this one is 650. So your final result will be 11,879. So you can just check your manual calculation. Okay? So take a screenshot if you need to. So let's have number 13. Find the number of all positive factors of 831. I don't know where there's a the. Now, we have a formula for this also. If we have a number, let's say n, number n, which we can break down as a product of its prime factors. In other words, its prime factorization. So break down its prime factors. You can represent as prime number 1 raised to some exponent 1 times prime number 2 raised to some exponent 2, and so on, depending on its number of prime factors. The formula for the number of factors is we just take the first exponent of the first prime factor, add 1 to it, multiply next exponent of the second prime factor plus 1, and so on. So again, depending on the number of prime factors. So let's do this for our given number. Our 831, how do we break this down? This is divisible by 3, right? 8 plus 3, 11 plus 1, 12 yung sum of integers, sum of digits. So this is divisible by 3. If you divide by 3, you would get 277. Now, for 277, I don't know if this is, what do you think? Is this, what is it divisible by? This is actually a prime. Okay? One way of checking if this is a prime is you can just divide by the prime numbers, right? You can just stop, we can divide by primes. Let me just write, to check if prime, divide by the prime numbers up to its square root. Square root. So the square root of 277 is around 16.6. How do we get this manually? You can just test, right? For example, you at some point you trial and error, 16 squared is 256. 17 squared is 289. So 277 is somewhere in between, no? So it's around 16 point something. You don't have to get the actual value. You just have to get a rough idea. So what are the prime numbers that we can check? We can do division by 2. Obviously, this is not divisible, no? We can do division by 3. This is also not divisible. By 7. Not divisible. You can check, no? I will just write. This is 39 remainder 4. 277 divided by 11. This is 25 remainder 2. 277 divided by 13. 21 remainder 4. So you can stop right here because 17 is above 16.6. So all of this not divisible, meaning 277 is already a prime number. So that means our number n, 831, is equal to 3 to the power of 1 times 277 to the power of just 1. So their exponents, both of the factors are just exponent 1. Meaning, for this formula, it should be, this is our E1, right? Our exponent 1, 1 plus 1, times exponent 2 is also 1. So we have, sorry, this should also be 1. So we just have 2 times 2. That's equal to 4. Okay? Okay. Next problem. A 3-digit number has exactly 3 positive factors. Find the minimum value of the 3-digit number. Now, this particular condition, exactly 3 positive factors, this only happens if and only if it is a square of a prime number. Okay, this is a very important property that you have to familiarize yourself with. This only happens that you have exactly three positive factors when you have the square of a prime number. Okay? For example, let's denote the square of a prime as p squared. What are its factors? Its factors are just 1, the prime number, and itself. So let's do some examples. Let's say we have 4. This is a square of a prime number, right? Because this is 2 squared. Its factors are just 1, 2, and 4. No? So we have 3 factors. What else? We have 9 because that's 3 squared. The factors are just 1, 3, and 9. We have, what's the next prime? 5, right? So that's 25. The factors are 1, 5, and 25. If you go further, we have 7 squared, which is 49. The factors are 1, 7, and 49. Of course, there's only 3 factors for all of this. And when you go to the next 11 squared, Take note, this is already our answer. No? Because the question, minimum value of a 3-digit number that has exactly 3 positive factors. So this is already our answer, 121. Okay? This is the minimum 3-digit. Okay, let's have one more problem before a break. It is known that x is rational and x is greater than 0 and x is equal to, let me rewrite this, 2 square root of 2, square root of 2, square root of dot dot dot, meaning it goes on to infinity. This is what we call an infinite nested radical. Radical, what are radicals again? These are just square roots, cube roots, fourth root, and so on. When you're saying nested, it's because there's a square root inside the square root inside the square root. No? And then it goes on to infinity. Take note, this is where the pattern repeats, right? This entire part is just equal to the entire thing, right? Is that correct? Meaning, this entire part is also just equal to x. Okay? Because this just goes on to infinity also. Same thing as this. This is just equal to x. So we can rewrite this as x is equal to 2 square root of x. Okay? So what do we do? Square both sides. So we have x squared is equal to the square of this. We have x squared is equal to 2 squared is just 4. By the way, when you have an exponent like this, you can just distribute the exponent. So we have 2 squared times square root of x quantity squared. So we have 4. And then square root of x quantity squared is just x. Okay? Now, take note, we can't directly divide by x. No, we can't do this. Why can't we do this? Because there's a possibility that x is, you're doing division by 0, right? But actually, you can actually do this because it's said here that x is greater than 0. But just in general, if this is not said, you can't divide by x, no, to avoid dividing by 0. So just for safe practice, no, let's avoid dividing by x to avoid dividing by 0. So what we can do here is we can transpose the 4x to the other side. So this becomes a quadratic equation, no? Degree 2. So we can factor out as x times x minus 4, no? Because there's a common factor of x. So that means we can have either x is equal to 0 or x minus 4 is equal to 0, meaning x is equal to 4. Now this is what we call an extraneous solution. So this is not a solution to the problem because x should be greater than 0. So our answer is just 4. Okay? Any questions? So we already finished half of the problem. So let's have a 5-minute break. It's currently 9:58 here. So be back after 5 minutes, which is 10:03 a.m. Philippine time. Okay? So let's be back after 5 minutes. Okay, so already 10-3. Let's continue. Please turn on your cameras again. And also, thumbs up so I know that you're back. Everyone, please confirm that you're back. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Number 16. It is known that x and y are primes. Find the number of solutions of this absolute value of x minus y is equal to 2015. Okay? Now, our first step here is that we have to take note that when we want to get the difference between two numbers is only add if and only if one is odd and one is even. Okay? Right? Because if you have odd minus odd, your answer would be even, right? If you have even minus even, your answer would be even also. So this is the only time that it happens that your difference is odd. In other words, odd is equal to, odd minus even is equal to odd. So you can also do absolute value because probably the even number is bigger, or let's say the odd number is bigger. Okay? That's the only time that happens. So take note also, x and y are primes, and one of them should be an even number. So take note, we only have 2 as the only even na prime number, right? There's no other even prime number. So that means either x or y, either of them, the value should be 2. So we have two cases. Case 1 is if y is equal to 2. Case 2 is if x is equal to 2, because one of them should be equal to 2. Okay? So if y is equal to 2, our absolute value equation becomes x minus 2 is equal to 2015. And then take note, since x should be greater than 2, why should x be greater than 2? Because it is a positive prime number, and all positive prime numbers except 2 itself are bigger than 2, right? Any other prime number, they are all bigger than 2. Meaning, this entire thing is just a positive value. So you can just take it out of the absolute value. So we can just write this as x minus 2 is equal to 2015. Okay? Meaning, our x is equal to 2007. Therefore, we have the solution xy is equal to 2017 and 2 for y. Okay, let's do case 2. Case 2, what happens? Our absolute value equation becomes 2 minus y when we substitute x is equal to 2, right? Is equal to 2015. Again, our y is greater than 0. Greater than 2 rather, because it's a positive prime number, right? Meaning, this would become a negative value. But since it's an absolute value, it should just become positive, right? So you can just make this as y minus 2 for it to become positive, right? Because it's an absolute value. So it's actually the same as case 1. You just have a different variable. So your y is equal to 2017. So our solution here is that x and y, x is equal to 2, y is equal to 2017. Notice these are two different solutions. Here, your x is 2017, your y is 2. The second one is the other way around. So these are two different solutions. And that's exactly what the problem's asking for, right? Find the number of solutions. So there's 2. Okay? By the way, when we're talking about number of solutions, it just means the answer to your equation. Here, it should be the pairs, the possible pairs for x and y because we have two unknowns, right? We have x and y. So your solution should be both x and y. No? It's the pair x and y. Okay, any questions before we proceed? If there are none, let's have number 17. Find the integral part of this expression. So what do we notice from this? Diba? We can just factor out the 1 over 2018, the denominator part, and we will be left with 1 plus 3 plus 5, and so on until 2013, 2015, 2017. This is just sum of odd integers, right? So this is, we can just use the arithmetic sum formula. Okay, arithmetic sum. What was it again? Number of terms over 2 times the sum of the first term plus the last term. So let me label, no, in case you forget. N is for number of terms. A1 is for the first term. AN is for the nth, or usually we just denote it as the last term. Okay? Now, at this point, we know the first term is 1. We know the last term is 2017. But what's the number of terms? We can use this other formula. You still recall your formula for arithmetic sequence? This one. D is for common difference. Okay? Last, nth term, or the last term is 2017. First term is 1. What's the common difference? These are just odd numbers, so the common difference is just 2, right? It's just 2. So we can transpose the positive 1, it becomes negative 1. Then divide both sides by 2. So what happens? That's 2016 over 2 is equal to n minus 1. So what is this equal to? 1008, right? Meaning your n is equal to 1009. So we have 1009 terms. Okay? So now we can use this formula. So we have sum is equal to 1009 all over 2. First term is 1. Last term is 2017. So we have 1009 times 2018 all over 2. Now at this point, we can just directly combine the entire thing. No? So we can have, let's bring back this part, the factored out denominator. So the entire expression becomes 1 over 1018 times the sum, this part. Huh? We'll put in here 1009 times 2018. Sorry, this should be 2018 also. Over 2. So the reason I didn't evaluate this is because we can cancel out. So our answer is 1009 over 2, which is equal to 504.5. The question is find the integral part, meaning the integer part. So our answer is just 504. Okay? Make sense? So take a screenshot if you need to. Now, actually, the next problem is just the same question, but it's asking for a different part. It's the decimal part. So the answer for number 18 is what? It's just this part, no? 0.5. The answer is just 0.5. Okay? So it's a two-parter problem. Okay? Let's move on to the next part. Next question. It is known that the two sides adjacent to the right angle of a right angle triangle. So let's draw. This is your right triangle. This is the right angle part. Two sides adjacent to the right angle. The ratio 1 is to 3. So let's say this is 1, this is 3. So 1 and 3 are not the actual values of the sides, right? So let's have, let's say 1:3, common factor x. Let's just use an arbitrary variable, x. So we can write this as 1x:3x, right? We can scale it up by x. So meaning this is x, this is 3x, the hypotenuse is 14. Okay? Pythagorean theorem. So we have 14 squared. Our a is x. Our b is 3x, or the other way around also. Pwede. We have 196, right? X squared. Distribute the exponent. 3 squared is 9. X squared is x squared. So we have 196 is equal to, we can add these two because it has the same x squared, right? So that's 10x squared. Divide both sides by 10. So this is the value of our x squared. I'm just going to flip the equation. 196 over 10, or 19.6. Okay? And then the question was area of the triangle. Find the area. Area of a triangle is just 1/2 times the base times the height, right? In our particular problem, our particular figure, our base we denoted as 3x. Our height is just x. So this is just 3x times x, that's 3x squared all over 2, right? This is our area. So we already know the value of x squared. We didn't have to find the square root. So we have 3/2 times 19.6, or let's just write 196 over 10. We can factor this out, right? 196 over 2. This is what? 98. Is that right? So 3 times 98. But then your 10 is also just 2 times 5. So we can cancel out, simplify further. This is 49, I think. So 3 times 49 over 5. That's equal to 147 over 5. So this is your answer. But you can also write it in terms of decimal, 29.4. Let me check. Yes, 29.4. Pwede ring. We can also have mixed fraction form. Any of these are acceptable. Any questions, clarifications? Just tell me in chat. Okay, let's continue. Amy is now drawing the largest circle inside a side length of 30 centimeters square. So let's try to illustrate. Let's say this is your square. This is, let's make it better. Or at least try. This is the largest circle that you can make inside the square, right? What do we notice from this? Take note, the diameter. This vertex or this point on the circle touches the side of the square, right? This point of the circle also touches the side of the square, meaning the side length of the square is just equal to the diameter of the circle, right? Is that true? Yes, it is. So which is given as 30 centimeters. So we just directly take, let's recall the formula for the area of a circle. It's just pi times r squared. In this case, what's our r? Our r is just half of the diameter, right? So that's equal to 15 centimeters. So it's also given here. We take pi with 2 decimal places. So 3.14, 14. Our r is 15. So let's substitute. Square the 15. We have 3.14. 15 squared is it 225? Yes, it is 225, right? And then evaluating, you would get 706 0.5. So you don't have to write the units, but the units is centimeters squared because it's area. Okay? No questions? Next. Excuse me. The sum in this should be off. The sum of the areas of two squares with integral, meaning integer, side lengths is 169. What is the side length of the larger square? So you might expect in the actual competition, it's very common to have wrong grammar in the English translated problems. So just expect there's some wrong grammar there. We do our best to understand the problem. Okay? Okay. So we have two areas. The side lengths should be integers. Okay, so what's the formula for area of the square again? It's just side squared, right? So let's say A is the length, side length of the small square. And then let's have B as the side length of the large square. So it says here, the sum of the areas. So area ni side small square plus area ni large square, which is A squared and B squared, right? Should be equal to 169. What does this look like? This is just Pythagorean. No, this looks like a Pythagorean theorem problem. This 169, by the way, is just 13 squared, right? If you test different integers, by the way, A and B are integers. This is actually the one that we mentioned before, the 5, 12, 13 Pythagorean triple. Okay? So you can check if your A is 5, your B is 12, you would get 13 squared. So this is a correct equation, meaning the side length of the larger square is 12. Okay? But in case you forget this, you can just do trial and error. Whatever pair of integers that would make sense, that would make the equation correct, right? Any concerns, any questions? Okay, next. In a rectangular coordinate system, if M with coordinates x, y is the midpoint of A, 5, 15, and B, 7, negative 3. So if you would try to, what do you call this? If you try to graph, this is your x, this is your y. Let's say this is 5. Let's say this is 15 on y. So this is your A. And then 7, let's say 7 is right here. Negative 3 is right here. Let's say this is your B. So your midpoint would be halfway, right? This is your midpoint with coordinates x, y, which we want to know the coordinates. But how do you get the coordinates of x, the coordinates of the midpoint? The x coordinate is just the average of the x coordinates of the other 2 points. Okay? So here, let's say our A has coordinates x1 and y1. Let's denote B with coordinates x2, y2, which we know the values of. And then our y is the same. It's the average of the 2 y coordinates. Okay? So take note, our x1 is 5. Our x sub 2 is 7. So that's 12 over 2, meaning our x is just equal to 6. So the value of this is 6, yung x coordinate. How about the y? For y1, we have 15 for A. For B, we have the y coordinate negative 3 all over 2. So this is also 12 over 2 now. So y is also equal to 6. Okay? So it's expected. This is 6. And then here, this is also 6. No? So the question is find x plus y. So you just add the two values. Okay? Questions? Okay, let's continue. There are no questions. What is the sum of exterior angles of a nonagon? What is an exterior angle again? The angles outside the polygon, right? Usually we're concerned with only regular polygon. Let's say for a triangle, if this is an interior angle, this is the corresponding exterior angle. This is interior. Another one would be like this. This is your interior. This is an exterior angle. This is interior. This is exterior. Now, it follows that for any, in case you don't know or in case you forgot, for any regular polygon, or even, it's not actually necessary na regular. For any convex, what do we mean by convex polygon? It's a polygon where it's enclosed like this. No? The opposite of convex polygon is what we call concave, meaning there are some vertices that go inward like this. For example, this is what we call concave. So for any convex polygon, the sum of exterior angles is equal to 360 degrees. So this is actually already our answer. It does not matter how many sides we have. Okay, for any convex polygon, it's always that the sum of exterior angles is 360. For example, if this is a equilateral triangle, this is 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. So this would be 120. This would be 120. This would be 120, which would add up to 360. Okay? So that's always the case. If you have, say, for example, a rectangle, this is 90. This is your corresponding exterior. This is 90 also. This is 90. This is 90, 90. So 90 times 4, that's also 360. Okay? Okay, next problem. Refer to the attached figure. A minus B plus C minus D plus E is equal to 0. Find the value of F plus G. Now, this one is very, I think, pretty interesting. I don't know if I've encountered this in previous competitions, but this might be challenging to look at first, but we just use our knowledge of geometry. For example, we have the formula for sum of interior angles. By the way, when I write a symbol like this one, it looks like a less than. This just means angle, okay, in geometry. So sum of interior angles, our formula for any regular polygon is n minus 2 times 180 degrees, where n is the number of sides. Okay, so please familiarize yourselves with this formula. Now, take note. What's the number of sides here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? This is a heptagon. So, number of sides is 7. So, meaning our sum of interior angles is equal to 7 minus 2 times 180 is equal to 5 times 180, which is 900 degrees. Meaning, if you add this angle A, let's identify first what are the interior angles here for this particular figure. We have this one. This is A, right? This one is also an interior angle. By the way, this is an example of a concave polygon that I mentioned earlier, right? Because there are some vertices that go inward. What is this? If this is B, this is angle B. What is this? This is 360 minus B, right? Because when you have a full circle, that's 360 degrees. Meaning, if you cut the circle into two parts, this angle right here is B. This other angle is 360 minus B. That makes sense? Okay. So plus 360 minus B. What else? This is our next interior angle. This is C. And then this one, this is an interior angle inside the polygon. This D is an exterior angle, right? So this is also 360 minus D, no? Because they form a circle. So we add 360 minus D. What else? We also have this interior angle E. We have this interior angle F. And finally, we have this G. And we know the value of this from our formula here. This is 900. So we can equate this to 900 degrees. Okay? Let's simplify. Take note, we can combine A minus B. Let's have the variables first. Plus C, the unknowns. Minus D. Plus E. Plus F. Plus G. And then we have plus 360 plus 360, that's 720, is equal to 900. So this is now our equation. Take note, this one is given as 0. No? Interestingly, this is given as 0. So actually, we can just cancel this out. So our equation simplifies to F plus G is equal to 900 minus 720. So I already transposed this to the other side of the equation. Meaning, our F plus G is equal to 180 degrees, which is exactly what we're looking for. F plus G, 180. Okay? So that's our solution. Any questions, clarifications? Okay, there are none. Let's have the next problem. If Andy goes from point B to point A, each step can only move down. No, you can only move down or move left. How many ways are there? Now, this is what we call, I think, Eulerian counting, or Eulerian method. So we pronounce this as Euler, Euler, not Euler. From the mathematician Euler. Okay? So what we do here is that at each intersection, we add the number of ways to get there. For example, to this intersection, how many ways can we get there? There's only one way, right? Coming from B. So let's label as 1. Here, there's also one way coming from B also. So that's 1. Here, there's also one way coming from this point. And here, there's also one way coming from this point. What else? Actually, we can continue this to the left and to the bottom. No? So this point is also 1, because there's only one way to get there, one way to get here, one way to get here. But then, when we combine up to this point, there's 2 ways to get here, from this point and this point. No, so we have to add the 1 point to the 1 way to get here and the 1 way to get here. So that's 2. Okay? For this one, we add the 2 from here and then the 2 from the right. 2 plus 1 is 3. Same thing here. We add the 3 from the top and the 1 from the right. So we have 4. How about here? You're only going down. So ma-maintain si 1. We maintain this 1. And for here, we have the 1 from here, the 2 from here. So we have 3. Here we have the 3 and the 3. So that's 6. Here we have 6 plus the 4. We have 10. Here we have 1 plus 1. That's 2. We have 2 plus 3. That's 5. We have 5 plus 10. That's 15. We have 2 plus 1. That's 3. 5 plus 3. That's 8. And then finally, 15 plus 8. That's 23. So there's 23 ways to get from point B to point A. So that's our answer, huh? Okay? Understood? Do we all understand the technique? I hope so. Let's continue. It is given that the total weight of 4 apples and 3 melons is 1,700 grams, and the total weight of 3 apples and 4 melons is 1,800 grams. What is the weight of 1 apple? So this is actually an algebra problem, not a combinatorics one. Why is it algebra? Because we can just make this as an equation. 4 times A for apples plus 3 times M for melons is equal to 1,700 grams. So that's our first equation. Next, 3 apples and 4 melons. So 3A plus 4M that's equal to 1,800. So this is equation 2. So we can subtract the 2. Huh? Let's do equation 2 minus equation 1. So 3A plus 4M equals 1,800 minus 4A plus 3M equals 1,700. So let's do operation on the left portion. 3A minus 4A, that's negative 8. 4M minus 3M, that's 1M. And then for the right side, 1,800 minus 1,700, that's equal to 100. So meaning, if we isolate M, we have M is equal to A plus 100. So we transpose the negative A. Okay, so this is now our equation 3, which we can substitute to equation 1. Okay, substitute equation 3 into equation 1. So actually, we could also substitute it to equation 2. It's up to you. So let's rewrite equation 1. We have 4A plus 3M. Let's replace the M with the equivalent na A plus 100. Okay? So we substituted. This is equal to 1,700. We have 4A plus 3 times A, that's 3A. 3 times 100, that's 300, equals 1,700. This is 7A. We have 1,700 minus 300. No? When we transpose this to the other side. 1,400, divide both sides by 7. Meaning, the weight of 1 apple is 200 grams. Now, that's exactly what we're looking for, right? Weight of 1 apple. Okay? Okay, next problem. There are 50 students in grade 7. 29 and 23 students like playing basketball and volleyball respectively. So let's write that. For basketball, we have 29. Now, when we're saying respectively, 29 is for the first one. 23 is for the second one, the volleyball. 4 students like both ball games. So it's in the intersection of volleyball and basketball is 4. So this symbol, this represents intersection, meaning the overlap between the two. Okay? So how do we analyze this one? We want to find the number of students who don't like both ball games. Okay, so first, let's count how many students who like at least one ball game. Or let's say, to be more specific, at least one of basketball or volleyball. How do we count that? It's the students who like the basketball plus the students who like the volleyball minus the overlap, right? Minus the overlap. We have to subtract because if we add the 2, there's some overlap, which is double counted. So we have to subtract the overlap. This is what we call, in case you're not familiar, principle of inclusion-exclusion. Meaning, we include all of them, all of the students, those who like the basketball, those who like the volleyball, and then we exclude the overlap. Okay? Meaning we have 29 plus 23 minus 4, which is equal to 48. So by the way, this is just the students who like at least one. So when we're talking students who don't like, it's the opposite of this, right? Students who don't like. Who don't like any. So it's just equal to the total minus this 148. 50 minus 48. So that's just equal to 2. This is the total, no? From the given. So the answer is just 2. Any questions? Clarifications? Anyone? Okay, if there are none, let's have number 28. When do the hour hand and the minute hand form a right angle between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. for the earliest case? Okay, so let's try to illustrate the problem. This is your clock. This is 12, 6, 3, 9. So your 5 is around here, no? So if it's in between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m., so your hour hand would be somewhere right here. And then if it forms a right angle, so your minute hand would be like this. No? So this is 90 degrees. Okay? So that's how we illustrate. But take note, we have a formula for this. Angle between our hand, H, so let's call this H, and M for minute hand. What was the formula again? Anyone? It's theta is equal to the absolute value of 30H minus 5.5 M. This theta is the angle. No? This is the Greek letter theta for angles. Okay, so remember this formula, ha? Okay. So for this particular problem, we know the angle that we want to get, right? This is the right angle, which is a 90-degree angle. And then we know the R. The R would be, if it's between 5 and 6, so the R is 5. Okay? So the only unknown is the minute. So what would be the minute? Now take note, actually, this formula right here, this part, this 30H minus 5.5 M, this would be greater than 0 or positive when the minute hand is behind the R hand. Okay? Meaning, it's before the R hand. Like this ba? This example. That's the earliest case, right? If the minute hand is still behind the R hand. Meanwhile, if this is negative, this portion, this value, if this is negative, this happens when the minute hand is ahead of the R hand. Ahead of each. Meaning, if it's like this, if this is your R hand, and then your minute hand is already ahead of the R hand. Okay? But take note, if we want the earliest case, we want this case, right? That the minute hand is behind the R hand. Meaning, this is positive. So what does that imply? If this is positive, meaning we can just take it out of the absolute value. Right? We can just take it out of the absolute value like this. Okay? So let's evaluate. This is 150 minus 5.5 M. Transpose, we have 90 minus 150. What's 90 minus 150? Is it 60? Yes, it is. Wait. Let me just write it like this. Divide both sides by negative 5.5. So your M is equal to negative 60 over negative 5.5. So to make this into an acceptable fraction, we can multiply by 2 over 2. No? So this is 120 over 11. So this is 10 and 10 over 11. So meaning, if the question is, when do they are hand? We have to answer in the actual time. So the final answer would be 5, 10, and 10 over 11 p.m. Okay? So that's your final answer. Sometimes it asks for the correct format. Sometimes it says the format should be R, 2 digits for the R, 2 digits for the minute, and then fraction like this. Let's say, for example, like this. And then AM or PM. Okay? But if it's not given, what should be the correct format? You have to include the R and the minute, including the fractional part, no? To be more specific, to be more accurate. It's not accurate, it's not valid if you round this up to 5:11 p.m. Okay? That's not accurate. So this fractional part should always be there. Okay? Next problem. We only have 2 left. Andy has 28 $10 and $20 banknotes altogether. He has $420 in total. How many $10 banknotes does he have? So let's use some variables. This is algebra again, no, actually. Let X be the number of $10 banknotes. And then let's use Y for the number of $20 banknotes. Okay? So that means, how can we make the first equation? There's 28 in total, right? So the number of $10 notes, which is X, plus the number of $20 notes, which is Y, is equal to 28. This is our equation 1. And then next, he has 420 in total. This actually gives us our equation 2 also. Because this is the value of the money, right? So how do we set it up? 10 is the value times the number of $10 notes, right? $10 times how many of them there are, plus $20 times how many of them there are, should be equal to $420. Okay? So that's our equation 2. So now we have a system of equations. By the way, let's simplify this first to make it easier for us to handle. Take note, for this particular equation, if we divide this entire thing by 10, it would just be X plus 2Y is equal to 420. So take note, these two equations are just equivalent. Sorry, this should be 42. No? We divided by 10. So these two equations are just equivalent. So this is our equation 2. So let's subtract equation 2 minus equation 1. Why is that? So that we eliminate X. No? We can eliminate X. So we have X plus 2Y is equal to 42 minus the first equation, X plus Y equals 28. So for the left side, X minus X cancel. 2Y minus Y, that's just 1Y or Y. 42 minus 28 is 14. So now we actually already get the value of Y. But the question is, how many $10 banknotes, which we denoted to be X? No? So our answer should be X. So we have X plus, let's go back to equation 1. If we rewrite this, our X is equal to 28 minus Y. So that's 28 minus the calculated value of Y, which is 14. So our X is also actually 14. Okay? No questions, clarifications? Is it clear? So we can now finish up with the last problem. There are 11 boys and 5 girls in a class. Choose 3 boys and 2 girls to form a study group. How many ways are there in total? Okay. So our solution here, we recall the combination formula. Are you guys already familiar? So you should be familiar na, no? Because you're already in final round. So by now, you already know the basics. Combination formula. Let's just write it. NCR, N choose R is equal to N factorial all over R factorial times the difference, N minus R, quantity factorial. So we use this combination formula when we're trying to choose this amount of people or this amount of items from the total amount of items. So for example, if we want to choose 11 boys, rather 3 boys out of 11, then that's 11 choose 3 or 11 C3, right? So by the way, the total number of ways is just ways to pick the boys, ways to choose the boys, times ways to choose the girls. Okay? You just multiply the two. So in this case, the ways to choose the boys is 11 choose 3. Now, R is for the number that we want to choose, N is the total. So this is 11 factorial over 3 factorial. 11 minus 3 is 8. So we have, let's expand 11 times 10 times 9. We can stop at 8 factorial because we can just cancel it out. Cancel, cancel. We can cancel out further, no? 9 over 3, that's 3. 10 over 2, that's 5. So this simplifies to 11 times 5 times 3 or 55 times 3, which is 165. Meanwhile, for the girls, so let's label this as for the boys. For the girls, how many girls are there in total? We have 5. And we have to choose only 2. So 5 choose 2 or 5C2. 5 factorial over 2 factorial times the difference, 3 factorial. Let's expand. 5 times 4, 3 factorial. 2 times 1 or just 2. Cancel, cancel. So this is just 5 times 2, right? 4 over 2 is just 2. That's just 10. Meaning the total waste is just 165 times 10 is equal to 1,650. Okay? Any questions? So this is already our last problem. You will be having your competition. When's the schedule? Is it next week already? So good luck in advance, no, for your competition. So before we leave, may I ask everyone to turn on their cameras once again. So we have a group picture first. Okay, let's have a group picture. Okay. How about the others? We have how many? We have 55. Okay, for the first group, because we can only fit so much, no, in one screen. First group, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, good. Second group, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, good. So that's it for our class today. Oh, is there any concerns first before we end? There are no concerns? Okay, so let me repeat.